non-infused chef and an infused chef. I'm 28 years old. Currently, I reside in Santa Barbara. I'm an executive chef of a restaurant called Barbareño, where we do basically central coastal cuisine. I'm a big fan of cannabis for medicinal purposes. I started using cannabis on the daily basis at 16. It was still frowned upon. I remember getting caught by my parents, always getting grounded. My 18th birthday, I went and got my medical card, but this was still when basically there wasn't many dispensaries throughout Southern California. I grew up in San Diego, so I've seen the movement change and how it's not as much frowned upon, but there's still just that negative stigma in society that anybody who smokes weed is considered a stoner and unproductive and doesn't have a purpose. They're just out there to get high. But for me, I grew up riding motorcycles and playing sports, and I banged up my body. I broke so many bones, and I'm already suffering from arthritis and just working in the kitchen, 16 hours a day, my body's falling apart. So me to cannabis is the best part, because every time I went to the doctor and described my pain, they always put me on, painkillers. They'd be like, oh, here's a Soma for, muscle relaxer, or here's some Vicodin. This should help with the pain. But with those, they're highly addictive. So when I was 18 till about 20, I had a pretty bad pharmaceutical addiction. Nobody's perfect, but I consider that my midlife crisis, and I got that out of the way very, very early. And, I could always fall back onto cannabis. Cannabis, to me, is the ultimate medicine in the world. It's, it can help people who are terminally ill. It can help people who have anxiety, PTSD, anything from THC to CBD, even basing it off of indicas and sativas. Both of them have their properties. For me, indica is my choice. I have ADD, so last thing I need to do is add any more energy to my body. So what I've decided to do now is use my skills for the better, to where I've learned and I've worked with some of the world's best chefs. And now what I'm doing is trying to be basically the Robin Hood of the industry. I'm not out there filling my pocket or chasing the dollar. I'm chasing the cause. So over the last maybe 8 months, I've been getting heavily involved into this cannabis movement, to where a lot of my proceeds go to fund people who can't afford this medicine. So I've teamed up with Emerald Triangle Genetics, Chuck Largan, who runs Magic Potion. And a lot of our proceeds go to basically, people who are, terminally ill, who can't work right now but can't afford medicine. But instead of us just sending them to the hospital to, rack up more bills and to go through chemo, in which just kills your body, we're giving them something that's natural. Everything we do is organically grown. There's no artificial sunlight. It's in a greenhouse, if you want to just go like that. But, it's as close to God's creation as possible. So what we've been doing on is pulling out terpenes, making the ultimate extracts, oil extracts, alcohol extracts, CBD extracts. If people suffer from epilepsy, we have testimonial where they can actually live a normal life now. With all these government bans, I'm trying to basically not intoxicate, but I'm trying to educate, society on the best way that this movement can take steps forward and not be frowned upon. Because a lot of these people who take our medicine, this is, their last resort and their best resort. So a little bit about me was, I got my fine dining experience in San Diego. I got a job at George's at the Cove under Trey Fauché. It's a highly acclaimed restaurant. I worked my ass off for 18 months for that guy. I did savory, then went into pastry. Then one day he was like, hey, I know you have a passion for this. Why don't you just move? So I moved to the Bay Area, and I started working at 2 Michelin star Gourmet with Bruno Chamel. I started at the very bottom, and I did my year. And I left as assistant pastry chef and an invitation to go to the world famous ENSP. It's basically the top pastry school in the world. I took the top course there, did my 2 months. It was just very intense, everything in French. I don't even know how I graduated. It was an amazing experience. And, that's what opened the doors to a lot of things. From there, I went to Hollywood and worked with Michael Voltaggio of Inc. I was his lead pastry chef. That guy taught me the most. That guy, is definitely my main mentor. I consider every chef who I've worked for a mentor. They all taught me different things. But from him, I got to go to Singapore. I did a short stint with Andre Chang at Restaurant Andre, one of the world's best restaurants. I was his pastry sous chef until basically we couldn't get me a work visa. So, last thing I want to do is get in trouble in Singapore. So I flew back to San Diego and opened up a restaurant called Trio 3. Trio 3 basically is in Rancho Santa Fe, one of the world's biggest richest, neighborhoods. It's just insane. It's, the average house that cost around my restaurant was $30 million. So that lasted for a little bit. It was definitely a hard crowd. And then I got an invitation to go to Hong Kong to work with Hideaki Sato-san from the Ryujin Group. Ryujin Group is one of the world's top restaurant groups from Japan. I flew over there, helped train staff, finalize menus, set up, his new restaurant. About halfway in, we opened up a place called Tavi, which now is 2 Michelin stars and one of the best restaurants in Asia. So, I decided I was kind of sick of the city and decided to move to the big island of Hawaii, where I worked at a place called Blue Dragon Restaurant as a pastry chef. And I got into my private chefing for the owner of Circus du Soleil, Guy Lalibert. So, working there, he was very humble. If I, ever come across that much money, I want to be just like him. He's not like the people I had to feed in Rancho Santa Fe or over in Hong Kong. He was down to earth, very nice, very just considerate, treated me with respect. It was an amazing time. So from there, I went to Beverly Hills, opened up a restaurant, helped bring up the value, and sold it. And that's where basically I got introduced to cannabis infusion. At home I always made my own, cupcakes and brownies and all that fun stuff. But this was where I went to the Cannabis Cup, got second place. Started doing my fine dine Michelin quality meals, never to the public. It's always in a private setting, either Prop 64 compliant or to another Prop 215 patient. About my meals is, there's never alcohol included. I'm kind of opposed to people mixing cannabis and alcohol. It's just a bad stigma, and then people get sick and then they try to blame it on the marijuana, even though it's, alcohol. Everybody always has an Uber ride, so nobody's ever eating and driving. So what I'm really doing now is I'm working on my own cookbook. I'm starting my social media. I'll have a YouTube channel pretty soon, but, my main thing is to teach people how to properly dose. That's a big problem right now in this field is people are using math, such as I'm going to make a batch of brownies, add 200 milligrams and cut it into 10 pieces, so each piece has 20 milligrams, but obviously, the fat that you're putting in it does not get 100% homogenized. So some of those might be 100 milligrams, one might be 2 milligrams. So I'm just stepping it up to a more health-conscious cuisine. So my meals on the other part are more teaching people how to properly eat, because there's so many just food allergies and dietary restrictions nowadays. It's because of all the hormones and antibiotics and just crap that people put into, the fertilizers such as pesticides, and you think you're eating healthy, but you're not. It's actually destroying your body, and it's destroying the evolutionary chain in which, humans have developed this far up to this point. So health-conscious food, such as eating more turmeric. Turmeric is not only good for arthritis and inflammatory problems, but it's also, if you eat enough, it can prevent Alzheimer's. So go to India, there's nothing like that. In my family, Alzheimer's, is very, very common. And if I was educated younger, I would have started, but now turmeric's in my daily basis. I do a lot of CBD, and I'm trying to just basically educate the world on not just America, it's more about the world on eating healthy, but, trying to show the benefits of how cannabis is more of a medicine as well. So why not just have some fun, infused with some cannabis, infused with CBD, how to balance out if you are on, eat so much THC that you are getting paranoid and you're not having a good time, how CBD can counteract with that. And also, cannabis has so many terpenes. Why don't we just extract the terpenes, put it with CBD, and then you're not even getting high. We're just using all the medicinal properties, and the list just goes on. There's, so many things that cannabis is good for, and it's just not being used to the full, potential because it's not fully regulated. So, government is just saying, hey, let's make this illegal because, one, we're not going to make money. Two, what's going to happen to all the pharmaceutical companies that back up lobbyists and other government agencies? So if we educate enough, I see this as a revolution. And if we can just be the forefront with nonviolence, just with education, let's just push forward, and I'm pretty sure, in the near future, look at Colorado, look at Washington, California's on the verge. There's still a lot of regulations here, which is understandable. Everybody has to pay taxes. But let's help the people first, there is some people out there who are greedy. For us, it's not about that. It's just about, establishing a good connection, educating the public, educating, the government, educating anybody we can, and just pushing for a good cause and just being successful. And, it's a plant, we can grow this, we can save the world with this plant, we're not adding chemicals into it, there's just these natural, basically, what's a good way to put it? Not necessarily an enzyme, but your body already has these receptors that, that love, CBD. So that just means that our body is meant for CBD. You add all these opiates, our body isn't meant to take opiates. Obviously, that's why there's opiate overdoses. How many overdoses have you ever heard of people dying on THC or CBD? There's zero. I bet you there's some people who went on some bad trips, but that's because they're uneducated. So, if you just take it as a medicine and educate yourself and listen to people who actually know what they're talking about, that we can change the world for better, and one is, healthy eating, and two is, seeing this more as a medicine and how you can actually add it into your daily life without not being productive. That's people's biggest fear, but, look out in the world how many successful people there are who use cannabis on a daily basis. So, over the next couple months, you're going to see a lot more of me, especially for advocacy of legalization, or at least regulating it to where it's not totally banned. And, it's, you're going to see me at the Cannabis Cups. You're going to see me, YouTube. Just, please follow me, kind of see what I'm about, kind of listen to what I'm about. Even if you're not into the cannabis scene, just watch about what I'm trying to talk about with healthy eating. And I guarantee it's just going to make you feel better. Even if you don't do it, at least I'm educating you. So that's what it's all about. So, if I need to be contacted, my email address is Justin, the letter J for my middle name, Snyder, SNYDER, @hotmail.com. Or you can find me on Facebook on Chef Justin Snyder. You can see my page. Or Instagram, which would be Chef Justin Snyder. So, just watch out for me. Definitely check out the cookbook. Part of the proceeds go to funding people who can't afford CBD. And so we can just donate, some of our work and just give back and just push this movement. And, my biggest words of advice, health-conscious food. And, educate yourself and properly dose yourself, so we can just remove this negative stigma, throughout, society. Thank you.